I'm an ocean physicist, which means that I study how the ocean breathes.
I'm a researcher on a research project called Livable Cities, and what we're trying to do in that project is to understand how we can radically transform the engineering of cities for a livable future.
I'm Natalia Cañas Estrada. I'm a PhD student in optical communication systems.
Yes, what we do is very much think about how users interact with technology.
My research is in educational technology, so how to use new technologies to support learning in the classroom.
The whole group that we're in is called LSI, which is Life Science Interfaces. So it's basically coming up with small devices that can be used in everyday life for different diagnostic purposes, whether that be in the environment or in health or loads like food industry and stuff like that.
In terms of research, my main interest is within what we call fluid separation. Right. So the easiest thing is if you think of the gin and tonic. You've mixed your gin with your tonic, and that is now your mixture, and then you decide it's too strong and you want to get the gin out.
So in biochemical engineering, what we do is we engineer bacteria to make stuff that we need in society. The one I work with, it puts OH group specifically in one place on a molecule called Grundmann's ketone, which sounds terrible, but it sounds like got no idea what it is, right? It's just like whatever. But it's the top half of vitamin D3, and the oxidized version has shown anti-proliferation and anti-invasive properties in prostate cancer cell lines. Where the bits of the cancer cells break off and become new cancer tumours in other parts of your body, so it prevents secondary cancers effectively.
So I am currently a PhD candidate in the Department of Medical Physics and Biomedical Engineering at UCL. I'm working with a team to make a novel type of brain imaging device. So it uses light, it's completely harmless, it's portable, it's inexpensive, and what we want to do is we want to use it to scan the function, how the brain is behaving in sick infants on the neonatal intensive care unit.
And my job is to explore new ways of connecting devices to the internet, new types of devices that could be connected.
I guess if you think about it, everything that's got technology has got something to do with computer scientists, because everything needs to be programmed.
Engineering is for normal people. It is not for the child geniuses. The main attributes of a good chemical engineer is to be a problem solver, is somebody that looks at something and says, well, that design is not very good because this thing drops as soon as you put your cup down. What can I do to make that better, to make sure that this stays up? So it is identifying problems and then finding a solution to make that better.
And then I did physics because that was a good way of answering questions. It's a toolbox, basically. Physicists are lazy. We don't learn facts. We learn how the world works, and the thing is, once you understand it, you kind of remember it, and you just keep applying the same thing in lots of different places. So I started with those two things, like interest in the outdoors and wanting to know how things worked.
I was interested in electricity and how the devices work. I mean, I was thinking why the sky is blue, why the trains, how the trains and airplanes move, and these kind of things. I don't have the answer for all of that still, but I was thinking about these things. And
I wanted to be a doctor from the age of 10. That was all I wanted to do. Studied very hard at school, and I was absolutely determined that that's what I was going to do. There's no guarantee in life how your life is going to pan out, but I wanted very much to be able to have a normal job, a job where I didn't have to work shifts, where I could have a family. So that was the main factor that made me think maybe not medicine, and also the length of the study, because money was an issue. Medicine in Norway would be a minimum of 7 years, whilst engineering was at the time 4.5. That was a big difference in terms of the length of time I would have to study and the study line that I would end up with. So
I just wanted to do interesting things. So I was always poking at things and just asking questions about how things happen. But basically I just wasn't afraid to try stuff, and I wanted to I didn't really care about having a career, and I still don't think I have a career. That's still a bit of a shock to me when people ask about my career progress. But I just wanted to do the next interesting things.
I fell into it in some ways. I mean, there's a lot of aspects about it I find interesting and like satisfying. I love the people I work with. I love interacting with the parents. I like being in the the hospital to doing research. I feel is much more applicable to the real world.
No, it's funny. I just got in touch with one of my former schoolmates who I haven't seen for countless years, and he's now a professor at City and I'm a professor here at UCL. We both went to one of the worst comprehensive schools in Watford, which is called Francis Coombe, and it had the highest rate for Borstal, kids going to Borstal and abortion, and it had the lowest rate for GCSE. So I knew I had to get out of school at 16, otherwise I was going to go downhill. So I went to sixth form college and I had no ambition other than to socialise and to enjoy life, and I did get my A-levels. I did quite well, and then I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but so I went to do psychology at a university that was far away from Watford as possible.
I was pretty sure that I didn't want to be a civil engineer as my dad, because I saw what he did and I didn't like it. But I really liked science. Science, maths, especially maths.
I think I was always interested in science. I didn't really know much about engineering and computing when I was that age, because at my school there weren't really any opportunities to get into that.
I'm from Iceland, so I started doing, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I was interested in maths and stuff like that. So
when I started off at 18 trying to decide what I wanted to do, I had no clue. I went down the basic science route, then I got more specialised as I went on. So in third year I specialised in chemistry and forensic science. So I knew I wanted to do something down the science route. Didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but the forensics was a huge part for me.
I enjoyed chemistry, but I wasn't going to do that as a complete career. Maths, not a mathematician, but it's cool as a tool. I really liked computers, but I didn't want to be a computer scientist. But those three together, then looking at it, I thought, well, surely. And I was reasonably good at DIYing as well. Because my dad wasn't there, so anything went wrong, Mum and I had to fix it.
I mean, when I was in school, maths was like the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't. I mean, I could do it, but it wasn't interesting.
my maths grades were not very good. I wasn't even sure I'd get into computer science at any uni, but I did. So I think it's always a matter of just, if you're worried about not the grades not being good enough, what's the worst that can happen? Always apply.
So I was doing an outreach event in Cambridge, and this mom and her teenage girl came in. She was maybe 14, and you could tell the girl was just switched on. She was so interested in what we were doing, and you could tell she just thought, this is so cool. I kind of want to do something like this. But it came out, but maybe I could be this minor role, or I could be this minor role, but I couldn't be the engineer. I just can't do math. And I tried to tell her, I was like, of course you can. Of course you can do math. You don't. And I said, look, I don't even do that much math. I had to study it, but that's not. I don't spend my day-to-day life writing out equations and things like that.
You can do physics, and I did physics at school, and I really struggled at physics at school, so I did. But I think, again, it's not really as you say, there's only parts of that subject that you could be interested in that you really ever want to take forward.
In fact, the most remarkable people that I have met, the genius, they are the ones that got bad grades in high school or even in university, but then they found a topic they were really interested in, and they worked very hard so they could develop it, work on it.
So from quite a young age then, I started to understand that engineering could really help change people's lives, and I was very idealistic and really wanted to make a difference in the world, and I imagined that how amazing could it be for me as an engineer to provide water to people who don't have water. How much impact is that?
And so I think the disciplines have got to change about what it is that engineering is changing. It's not just about working in a factory. It could be, they could sort of push things like human robotic interaction, and how do we develop a world with autonomous or driverless cars? What does that mean? What's the psychology? And bring some more of that in terms of physics. When the quantum computing comes on board, what does that mean in terms of how it's going to solve problems and how we as humans are going to be engaged? So if we could just change the disciplines a bit more to be more broader, which is what I think is happening in some science subjects, you might get more people interested in them.
I think that's the other side of engineering, which I think we don't make enough of.
Yeah.
And I think makes it worth doing all the kind of maths and the science that you perhaps think, oh, I can't do that. Well, you can do it well enough to be able to be an engineer, I believe.
One thing that I remember about being at school was that I didn't really ever, I mean, I never knew jobs like this existed. I never knew people did stuff like this.
And I don't think the STEM field is really doing itself a good service by not making it more obvious, sort of all the things you can do with it.
I think engineering is incredibly poorly communicated to young people because the word engineering doesn't actually mean anything to anyone, apart from, or perhaps it does, but usually it's around sort of engines and fixing things, and there is so much more to engineering than that.
I think what is available to a lot of people, and I think they don't really think about it in the way they should, and particularly not girls, is I think that engineering is an amazing place to work, and there's so many incredible things that can be done with it. And I think people think, oh, one of the things that I feel very strongly about is that engineering ought to be portrayed not just about widgets and objects and making it bigger and faster and smaller, or whatever. It's actually about working out what people need. I think there are some fantastic things that you can do which you don't get sight of, you don't see.
It's just very hard you try to pick what you want to do with your life, and all you know about an engineer is you suspect, or maybe you know someone who works in a machine shop who does kind of assembly work, and you think, well, I don't want to be a mechanic. Or maybe a girl has never had experience, again, building anything, so she doesn't see the appeal with that. Or you just get told it's a lot of math. It's a lot of math. It's a lot of math. So you're like, no.
I think your interest peaks when you're younger. I think the support probably isn't there when you're that age. And it's very hard to make a decision between the ages of 14 and 18 what specifically you want to do, because the jobs that are out there are very specific. Like in science, like if you were to become a QA or a QC analyst, like those are very specific, but when you're 17 you have no idea what that means.
I was the only computer scientist that worked in this lab when I first started here. We had an architect, we had a journalist, we had a philosopher, we had designers.
The way I learned biology was some fantastic videos on the internet.
Okay.
Crash Course is one of them. I can't remember the names of the other sites. Those were really useful because they're 10-minute videos, so you don't have to sit down and watch and read an entire book, but you just get a little bit. This is it kind of explained for, I think it's about kind of A-level, GCSE level.
I started uni, as in I started programming, the first time I programmed I was 20 years old.
Okay.
So it's something you can always change your mind as well, but yeah, you can start whenever.
It's not too late. The thing that's very useful is to do science GCSEs and A-levels, because they give you a really good foundation, and that it's kind of hard to describe in some ways, but knowing stuff about science gives you a framework for the world, and it means that whatever you do next, you understand the basic rules that make it.
And once you actually get into that making of things, it's just magic. It really is. And anybody that's done a bit of craft work, design work, I mean, the thing I did when I was a kid was I made a lot of clothes. I did a lot of dressmaking. And I think that actually just that physical making of things and thinking about how the pattern works and what I wanted it to look like, I think is the sort of design side of things, and I think that's a really important part of engineering.
I mean, I went to school for 5 years basically, and just no one's expected to know it off the bat. Engineering school is a lot of teaching you how to think, which I don't think you actively recognize at the time. You realize it once you kind of enter the real world and you're around peers who do a lot of different things, not just around engineers, and you realize, oh gosh, I know how to problem solve now, and I know how to debug something. And if it doesn't work, instead of saying whatever, and throwing up my hands, you actually, okay, well, let's figure out why it doesn't work and where on the chain, has it broken down, and let's fix this. Okay, let's fix that. And yeah, that's a big skill. Yeah.
It's not so common for girls to choose a career in science, and I know that because I did my high school in a girls' school, in a girls' college, and they were not so interested in science. However, I think maybe it was because they didn't show us the fun part of it.
I do sometimes notice when I go into a meeting that, oh yeah, there are 15 men here and I'm the only woman. That only means that there's no queue in the ladies.
So I think women tend to do biology in the sense, I heard one of my supervisors said, it's not that, I think he said women have more of a tendency to want to work on something that relates to other human beings.
I'd say maybe men are more interested in technical things than women, because it's a matter of the thousands of years, you know, the way you know, you, how can I say, it's like you cannot suddenly change everything. Even if some women enter into science, the responsibilities of women have been through history different, and they are brought up differently than a guy.
In the home, actually, parents' expectations of a student, of their children, are quite gendered. The messages that they get in the classroom through kind of unconscious biases from teachers is actually affecting their ability to say, yes, this is something, this is a career for someone like me, yes, I'm able to do it. The stereotype about what it is to be a woman is nothing to do with the experience of being a woman. The stereotype around engineering and science is nothing to do with the actual reality of those things. The problem at the moment is those two stereotypes totally don't match. You can either be a beautiful, dumb actor woman, or you can be an unattractive woman in science who doesn't really know how to make friends. Which one of those do you want to be? Which one of those will get you most rewards from society? And I think it's totally damaging.
I mean, at uni, there was 10 women in my course out of about 100 people. But never at any point did I feel that was holding me back.
I could apply for something without feeling that under pressure from a male counterpart, then I wouldn't feel that pressure now.
I think many companies, it seems to be a trend now, you want to try and have diversity or equality, you want to have more, you know, whether it's sex or race or whatever. So I think it's quite emphasis on that. I still feel, like you say, we're a bit backwards still. 20 out of 100 isn't, you know, it's not 50-50. But I don't feel, especially studying, I don't feel like I'm treated any differently by lecturers, or, I mean, my grades are just my grades, it's however well I do. It's got nothing to do with, you know, whether I'm female or male.
Try and find someone to talk to, because it's always easier to get... it's fine reading books and reading stuff on the kind of internet and stuff, but you never get quite how passionate something is, and also you can ask questions.
Yeah. I never had a passion for any of these. I didn't read Nature in bed or New Scientist before I went to sleep. Not at all. You know, I just wanted something that would put bread on the table. You know, I wanted a job so I could have a life. The job wasn't my life, and it isn't my life.